for joining.
Yeah, of course. Thanks you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I get to do this pretty often. I do a few podcasts a week, and not often. I'm super excited about all my guests really, but as we explore this whole cosmetic surgery space, med spa space, connecting with you gives it a very interesting spin to the conversation. It's not often that we get to speak to people who are in the forefront of technology, right? Converging technology with their practice. So when I heard what you're doing and how your involvement, got super excited. So very pleased to have you here. I'm gonna give it a shot to give you an intro, but I know I'm gonna fall short. So once I give you that a little brief intro, maybe you could jump in and give a little bit more of your background. But there's a lot to say, right? So, well, we're sitting down with Dr. Parsa Salehi, right? Salehi is the last correct way, right? Okay, awesome. Beverly Hills facial plastic surgeon, Cornell Yale fellowship trained under Paul Nassif. Okay, the kind of pedigree that usually tells you exactly what to expect. Except Parsa is also one of the few working surgeons in this country actually publishing peer-reviewed research on AI in medicine. He has compared Claude, GPT, Gemini, Grok, and DeepSeq for patient-facing surgical content. He co-founded a med spa. He sits in the advisory board of an AI healthcare startup. He is exactly the kind of surgeon I wanted to talk to about where all this is going. So, Dr. Parsa, thank you for joining. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background and, elaborate on that. And yeah, maybe put in some of the pieces that I've definitely missed.
Well, that was a very, very kind introduction, and I'm glad to be here because, as you said, healthcare is very specialized, and we spend so much time as doctors focusing on our craft that a lot of these discussions about AI and technology in the future, they don't really happen with my colleagues. So I'm really grateful to be able to talk to some like-minded people about that. So I guess a little about me. I was actually kind of lived all over the US. I was born in Texas, and I went through most of high school there, moved to New Jersey where I finished high school. Then I went off to Cornell University in New York to do my undergraduate in human biology, and I also focused on the US healthcare system and nutritional sciences. Went off to Philadelphia to finish, to do my medical school, Drexel University College of Medicine. Went straight to residency, and I did head and neck surgery at Yale. And I ended up being, because of my interest in research and entrepreneurship, I ended up pursuing a master's. So I was the only surgical resident, I think ever, subspecialist to get a master's while a resident at Yale. So I did my master's degree while a resident, so I didn't really have much free time, but it was a cool experience. At Yale, went straight off to fellowship in facial plastic and reconstructive surgery here in Beverly Hills, where the main director was Dr. Paul Nassif. Some people know him from the Botch TV show, but I also had some awesome other faculty like Bob Akazizadeh, who's now the president of the Facial Plastic Society, Dr. Ben Talay, who's one of the biggest facial rejuvenation surgeons in the world, and Guy Masri is a famous oculoplastic surgeon. So I did all that, and I, over the years practiced and, honed my craft as a surgeon, but I've always also had that interest in how do I make a big impact and help people in a system-wide kind of effect. And that's kind of what opened my eyes to the AI and technology world, because that was something with medicine. I mean, I love doing surgery. I love being in the operating room. But even if I go max effort and never sleep, I can see 20 patients a day in clinic, 30 patients a day. And surgery, I can do 1 or 2 if I really want to focus on being a good surgeon. So if I want to have the impact on the most people, I realized I need to understand things outside of necessarily being a really good operating surgeon to figure that out.
When we first connected on the phone, you were in a poolside at the Four Seasons. I'm always curious, what does a perfect day off for you look like? Just as an ice-breaking, question, what do you do on your day off? What's the perfect scenario?
So actually my perfect day off wouldn't be poolside at the Four Seasons, even though I'm very grateful and that was awesome. My perfect day off would basically be wake up, go to the gym, and not only work out, but also kind of hit the sauna, this cold plunge steam room, the things that I think are good for longevity. And then that's like early morning before maybe, the family wakes up, friends wake up. Then I would do a hike, ideally one that has an ocean view. So you get high up there and get to see the ocean. And then really just come home and relax with family and friends. I mean, I'm basically low key in that way, and it's weird because I live in LA and everyone wants to go out and all that stuff, but I'm more of a Orange County person in terms of like
lifestyle,
more chill and
yeah. Amazing. Well, listen, your path, right? You went to Cornell, Drexel, Yale, then a Beverly Hills fellowship under Nassif, and then Salehi, right? Salehi, right? That's a deliberate path. Right? When did facial plastic surgery actually became the thing for you, and not just a specialty option?
So it's really interesting, actually. So I don't know why, when I was a kid, I always wanted to be, and I won't lie, I wanted to be the first plastic surgeon, or first surgeon to play in the NBA. And then as the NBA dream started going off, and because I was a big Jurassic Park fan, I wanted to do my summers as a paleontologist. But the surgeon is the one thing that always stayed. And I always thought I'd be a heart surgeon because I thought, what's cooler than cracking a chest open and taking a heart out and putting a new one in? But as I got towards medical school, I realized heart surgeons or big cardiac surgeons, the big surgeries that fascinated me, they're less common now, which is great for patients. They're non-invasive, they're a lot chiller. So I was like, well, I don't want to spend my whole life doing pursuing a surgical craft that I think is becoming more niche. So, in the nice way of basically saying obsolete. Then I was like, okay, well, I love sports. I want it to be in the NBA, so let's be an orthopedic surgeon. Let's be a sports surgeon. So that's what I was going to do all of medical school up until the last moment. So for the medical people watching this, I was applying away rotations to ortho. And I happened in a head and neck surgery room. It was a head and neck cancer and neck dissection. I'd never seen it before because head and neck is such a little small specialty. At the time I applied, I think there were 250 spots a year. So it's very small across the whole country. So I fell in love with it. I was like, holy crap, this is how beautiful surgery is, and dissection. And ortho felt to me more like carpentry, even though I liked the people a lot. So I kind of had a gut feeling and I switched. So I thought I was going to just do head and neck, reconstructive surgery, cancer surgeries, which I love and I still love. But as I went through, I just kind of got captivated by facial plastics, which is a subspecialty of my surgical specialty, for a couple of reasons. One, working with cancer patients can be very hard on your mental status, and telling people they have cancer, telling people the prognosis. Obviously, I'm very grateful for my mentors who do this, for the doctors who do it, but that part was hard on me because I was bringing a lot of that home. And then two, as a head and neck cancer reconstructive surgeon, oftentimes your ability to pursue the other things that started to interest me, the entrepreneurial things, global system-wide things, was a little more limited because you're usually tied down to a hospital.
Yeah.
Facial plastics seemed like it would let me do big surgeries, let me still do reconstructive stuff if I want to do it, and still kind of feed my entrepreneurial kind of side too.
So you practice, or you operate across several practices, right? How does your week look like, right? Being able to kind of spread yourself around everything you do.
Yeah, so my main focus is basically here in Beverly Hills, where I mainly just do cosmetic surgery. And that's with one of my mentors, Dr. Ben Talay, who's one of the big facial rejuvenation, facelift guys in the world. And I operate in his surgical practice under him as an associate. And then he has a secondary location too, Cupid, which we focus more on I focus personally on the lip lift, which is a surgery done on the upper lip to decrease the distance and increase the view. And then the other providers there do the non-invasive stuff. So that's the bulk of my surgical practice. Then, because I didn't want to lose my reconstructive side, actually, and I wanted to keep doing that and maintain that part of my practice, I do 4 days a month, so every other week I go down to Orange County, where I do mainly reconstructive stuff, where I work with a dermatologist, Dr. B.W. Gary, and work to do the things that kind of exceed, dermatology is a medical specialty. I'm a surgeon, so anything that exceeds that threshold and needs reconstructive stuff, that comes to me. And then with Vitality, that was more of again, one of the co-founder who was very interested himself in creating a space specifically tailored to men, because he himself was getting laser hair removal, and he felt like everywhere he went, there wasn't really a space that he felt comfortable because it was so targeted to women. So he wanted to make a space that's not necessarily just for men, but like more neutral, where men and women, everyone. And since I had the, training in the aesthetic space, whereas he's trained in the wellness and longevity space, I kind of brought that specialty to him and kind of advised and helped get that off the ground as well.
Amazing. Wow. Now everything makes sense. Absolutely. You said something very interesting on our first call. You said that high-end plastic world is highly hospitality dependent. And that some practices are sending their teams to stay at the Four Seasons to learn about service. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so it's something that I think a lot of doctors, I think all doctors really, we don't get a lot of business or entrepreneurial training, and honestly, it's a little bit frowned upon in medical school and stuff. And in residency, if you're in academics, which most of us are, it's frowned upon to go into private practice a little, if you're being honest. So that was an eye-opener when I was mentioning it too, when I came to this side of working with Dr. Salehi at the Beverly Hills Center, where I do my surgeries. I was shocked to see how much of that interplay goes on, because, and it makes sense, if a patient is coming and wants their face changed, really rejuvenated, refreshed, one, they want to feel comfortable. They want to feel like it's a high-end place that will take care of them. Every need they have will be taken care of. But two, especially at the level Dr. Salehi is and that I am, you are getting to a clientele who expect a level of service when they pay. And even though it's a surgery, they still, in a way, look at it as a service. And if they're getting, paying top dollar for a service, they want that same experience that they get anywhere else when they walk into Chanel and buy a bag, when they walk into the Four Seasons and stay. Wherever they go, they're used to that level of service. So you do have to be cognizant of that. And so it was actually pretty shocking to see, like what water bottles are in the lobby, what this, what that, those things mattered. And I never thought those things would matter in a surgical practice, but they matter.
Right. Well, and just to kind of talk about the same, perspective, but more in the operational side. And we hear this so much, right, from people, doctors in their practice. They go to school and they're laser focused on, what their craft is and what they're going to do. But then that piece that comes with, not just having a practice, the operational side. I know that, you kind of have transitioned into your own, med spa journey and entrepreneurship. How was that adjustment for you?
So it was definitely an adjustment. Adjustment's a good word. Because it's a lot of things you don't know. I think for me personally, I spent a lot of time, especially in parts of my education, for example, at the end of med school when I matched. So I'd already known I was going to Yale. I already knew my program, so I had a few months before starting. And then even at Yale, one reason I really wanted to go there is because I was part of the Yale Entrepreneur Society, Yale Launch, the Startup Society. So my point is, in these years leading up to this moment, I realized that was a deficiency in my training and my education. So I spent as much time as I could filling in the gaps, whether that's just picking up a book, reading the Lean Startup, whether it's the podcasts I listen to, whether it's my friends that I talk to. And I think that helped a lot, but still it's shocking. And I think in medicine, at least getting to the point where I was years ago when I finished training, you kind of have a very direct path. You study hard, you get good grades, you end up somewhere. There's not really any backstabbing and stuff like that. In business and stuff, you realize that nobody's here necessarily to give you a handout. No one here to help you. It's pretty cutthroat, especially in a market like LA for cosmetics. So that part was quite shocking to me, because I'm someone who, even when I started my business initiatives, if another competitor wanted to shadow me or learn from me, I would just do it. And people would call and be like, you realize you just trained him how to do this and now he's doing it across the street and you didn't charge him, now he's your competitor. And I don't necessarily care, but I do, that's a shocking thing to me that other people are like, no, why did you do that? To me,
Yeah.
I think doctors have a duty to train and teach. That's why I do it. But yeah, so it was definitely an adjustment.
Yeah. And from restaurants, right? Usually when you have a restaurant next to you that is doing well, that actually makes you raise the bar, right? So it just lifts the experience overall, right? It keeps you on the edge. So competition, in a way, it's good. But you're right. I mean, I think that overall, we shouldn't fear that, and the growth, whatever helps growth in the industry, right? Whether that person that you're training becomes your competitor, it shouldn't be, something that holds you back on, right? Let me ask you. Yeah, go ahead.
No, yeah, I think you make a great point. I think that's one thing I'm grateful to Dr. Ben Talay for is he taught me that. He said, look, first of all, he taught me. I mean, I joined him, so I'm not his competitor. I work for him. But he says that all the time because he has people visiting him, people visit me. And he's like, look, you teach other people, it's okay. Then they go out there and even if hopefully they give you credit. If they don't give you credit, whatever. You bring the whole field up and
right.
We all rise together.
Exactly. What is something most plastic or facial plastic surgeons believe about this work that you think is just wrong?
About the cosmetic work? So that answer, I think, actually, I just wrote a paper on this, so I'll give you, and it was a pretty well-received paper, but I think the way we evaluate outcomes might be wrong. And there's two parts to that. One is all the studies that are done, I think, essentially in the cosmetic world that are outcomes-based. And honestly, it's sad for me to admit, but medicine in general, there's a financial incentive, whether that's pharmaceutical, oncology drugs, whatever it is, there's usually a financial incentive. So you have to filter that out. Cosmetics, I think it's even worse because you have all these surgeons, especially surgeons as they get older, get fixed in their way, and then they'll publish studies that say their way is right because that's the way they do it. And it's very easy to compare that. And I'll give an example of one of the famous facelift studies years ago that said the deep plane, which is the way I do it, Dr. Bentley does it, is the same as the older technique. And if you look at the way that study was done, well, they did a split face study. They did half the technique in one side, half the technique in one side. But one side was done by a different surgeon, and this was done by, I think, the residents or the fellows. So how are you going to compare those two results? But the narrative was, oh, they're equal, so why do the other one? And so basically, I think one thing that surgeons believe is all these studies, I think you just have to use your eyes, right? Like if a surgeon is posting 100 results, 200 results, all side to side with the same lighting, same camera, no makeup, and they look better, that's probably the right answer. I don't need a study to tell me what my eyes are seeing. And I think that's actually what the paper I wrote about is like, and then some surgeons will counter, well, we don't have to improve our technique, even though, yes, my eyes see that's a better technique, my patients are happy. Well, yes, patient happiness is part of it, no question.
Right.
But picture if your medical doctor said that. Well, his hypertension didn't come down, but he's happy. It's like his cholesterol still high, but he's happy. So we're doctors. We can't just say patient happiness is it. So I think that's honestly the biggest thing I've come to realize is like as doctors, as surgeons, as cosmetic surgeons, we keep saying happiness. And of course, yes, you want to be happy. And that's the whole point of the service we just talked about. But we also want to have good outcomes that are objective. So when people look, that person looks natural. They look refreshed. They look like themselves. They don't look fake or blown up or weird.
Right. So you're still early in your private practice arc. Fast forward 5 years. What does the Salehi practice look like in a way that surprises people?
Yeah, it's a great question. So to be honest, I'm someone who doesn't like to close any doors. So in 5 years, if something comes up that I think will let me make a better impact on humanity, a more positive impact on people, I might be doing it, and I don't know what that is. And I think back to actually my high school yearbook quote, and ironically, I think it was Will Smith who said it, but just ignore who said it and just look at the quote. And the quote is like, basically, I don't know why I'm here, but the reason I'm here is because I want to make people's lives better. I want to change humanity for the better. So whatever I end up doing, I hope the world is a better place because I was here. And I think that's my guiding mission. And in terms of my surgical practice, well, in 5 years, hopefully, I continue to practice. Medicine's a practice, so I keep getting better, keep getting more and more patients, but my technique keeps getting better. Patients are happier and happier and happier, and objectively, I'm regarded well and I'm contributing research-wise. But the whole reason I've gotten interested in AI and technology is because my friend actually, I just went to a bachelor party in Montreal this past weekend, and he called me an expensive tool. He was like, "You're a well-paid tool." So, and one of my colleagues calls us face mechanics. It's because that's essentially what we are. We can work on one person and be the mechanic for the face, or the tool that makes the face, look more refreshed. But I can't change the world, right? Like if you think about the whoever's you want to talk about, the Elons, the Mark Zuckerbergs, the Bill Gates, the Warren Buffetts, they can have an impact that changes the world overnight with whether it's a policy initiative, whether it's funding a technology, whether it's a innovation. And that part of me, I'm hoping surprises people in 5 years, that breakthrough where I can have that global impact, whether it's via AI, whether it's via another technology, whether it's just a product or service, whatever that is to make people's lives better, that's my goal.
Amazing. I love it. Okay, so let's talk about AI since you bring it up, right? You have actually published peer-reviewed research comparing Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, DeepSeq for patient-facing surgical content. Most operators I talk to are still asking what AI can do, right? You have already kind of measured that. What did you find that surprised you?
Well, what I found in the annoying thing about studies are when you use peer-reviewed studies, it takes a minimum of 6 months from idea to publication. Minimum. It usually takes longer. In 6 months, the GPT, Grok, it's completely changed. Yeah. So it is a lagging indicator. But at first, what shocked me was AI sometimes did hallucinate. Like I didn't realize how much hallucinations occurred until we did these studies, and that was across all of them. Like instead of saying I don't know this, it would just kind of fill something in, and as the expert, as the surgeon, I'd be like, that's not right. And then if you called it out, it actually would say, oh yeah,
you're right. Yeah.
Like,
It'll agree with you. Yeah.
But I'm also shocked at how much better things are getting. And there's actually, we're doing another study on patient education materials, but for facial synkinesis, which is facial paralysis. Hopefully someone doesn't copy it now that I said it, but we're all going to add in open evidence, which is another AI model, but to do it, you need to have your NPI number, National Provider Identifier. So it's not open to the public. So it's for doctors only, but it uses peer-reviewed studies as its the only thing it draws upon. So that's been really interesting. So we want to see how that does compared to the other AI models. But I think that was the most shocking thing is like when people talk about hallucinations and stuff, it actually happens. And sometimes you would see it given necessarily an opinion, not a fact. And that is interesting. So like when people talk about the existential risk of AI and the humanitarian risk of AI and the Terminator situation, well, that was the first time I was like, holy crap, this is real, because this is medicine and it's like just making something up. What if someone's like, this society or this country, should we go to war or not? And it's like, yeah, we should. It's like, right. So it's a little, it scared me a little.
Yeah, you're right. I think that a lot of people kind of took it by heart, and it's basically we really didn't have a full understanding of how to operate. I think that as the models improve, also comes that learning curve of us being able to adjust and learning how to communicate. Whatever you put in is really what you're going to get out. It's impressive how they've come from the last 6 months. Like it's amazing. Incredible. It's amazing.
And I say this not to discount AI. It's amazing. As we talked about, It's the future. There's no stopping it. Not only is there no stopping it, it's just great. It works so well. It's it works so well that's why I was shocked to see that it made even mistakes. That's kind of what I'm trying to say.
Totally. Yeah. But even though it's still, you still need that, eye to be able to arbitrage, right? It's just an extension of you, right? It can help you amplify what you do, but at the same time, it's far from being able to, rule out what the profession is itself, right? The true professional is. So, are you actually using AI on your operating day yourself in any meaningful way? or is it still mostly research project kind of based?
I use it for my research for sure. Meaningful ways, yeah. I mean, if we have a new technology or new treatment, I put all of our old patient education materials, like the handouts we'd give post facelift, post Botox, whatever. I put it in AI and I said, hey, can you make this any better? And then I reviewed it, of course. I didn't just copy it and hand it to a patient. But actually, I put almost anything, things that need like legal checks, like a lawyer needs to check, I don't use it for. Anything else, I basically put it all through there because I think it's a way to enhance. Oftentimes, actually, one thing we found in our studies was both the AI, some of them, and also doctor materials are written at a level that is too high for the average patient, as in like the instructions are confusing. So a lot of the things I did because of my own study that I found this out was putting it in the AI and say, hey, take this down to like a high school level or a middle school level. And that helped a lot because I was like, oh crap, maybe this is why I get 7 calls at night about the same question because nobody understands what I wrote. This makes more sense.
Makes sense. Yeah, totally. It's like in a way a translator from the technical to your everyday person. Yeah, absolutely. I think you mentioned in our first call, and this could, I mean, we talked maybe a couple of weeks ago, so things might have changed, but most doctors are skeptical, almost hostile, right, to this stuff. What do you think they are actually scared of when you cut through the surface objection?
So this is one thing that I've come to realize, maybe because I'm surrounded by doctors, and I do think that's a really cool part of my profession. I can pick up my phone and I have a whole phone book of doctors of every specialty across the country. But doctors are just people. And the average person does not anticipate technology changes well. So if you look in the 90s, there's literally people on late night going and saying, why do we need Google? We have yellow pages. Why would we need to look up? Like, why would we do this? We have maps. I mean, if you go back, why people used to write down, why would we need cars? We have horses and oil is less common than grass for the horse to fuel. So why would we have cars? Go back to New York Times when they wrote big headline that flying will never be a mainstream thing. Like people flying in airplanes would never be a real thing for the mass people. I mean, the average person does not anticipate technology until it arrives. Even the iPhone. Think about 20 years ago when we were all using Razr flip phones, someone saying, hey, we're all gonna have touch screens. And I remember when the first iPhone came out, people were like, why would I use a touchscreen? This doesn't make sense. So my point is, I think one, doctors are people. So just like every other person, they're skeptical of new technology. But two, there is the part of them that they're trying to protect their jobs. And that's the part where I think anyone, doctor or not doctor, anytime you've tried to resist technological advancement because you're trying to protect jobs, that's always been a losing game. And either it'll collapse your whole country or it'll collapse your profession. So either way, you basically have to get on board. And the signs are already very clear. One of the big public hospitals in New York, the CEO said, we're already looking at AI to replace radiologists. I was just, I cover one of these hospitals up in Northern California, and the radiologists, after a certain hour, were already working remotely. They weren't in the house anymore. Last year, this is a year ago, somebody in the States did a remote surgery with a robot in Africa. So, and then even the Da Vinci robot, the robot that people are doing these remote surgeries on, these were developed by the military for that purpose, to do remote surgery. And every time you log into the Da Vinci now, if any doctor will tell you, you accept that you're training their model. So it's not a leap of faith to say, hey, in 2 years, in a year, the robot can just use all the training that you just did. And it can do it. And wow. It's almost brain dead to think that this won't change our field and that it won't change everything, because we spend as a country like $5.4 or $5.3 trillion on healthcare. That's how much we spend. The US government spends $1.9 trillion on healthcare. So it's going to bankrupt the country if you don't bring that cost down. Now, this part I'm going to advocate for doctors. Of that 1.9 trillion, only 8.6% goes directly to physician salaries. Mm-hmm. If you do all clinical services combined, it's about 19%. So even if you completely stop paying doctors and make doctors obsolete, you're only going to reduce the 1.9 trillion by 8%, 9%. Yeah. And plus you have to pay the robot, you have to pay, upkeep of the robot, you have to pay the AI company. So you're going to drop the cost of healthcare like 4 or 5%. It's actually not going to do much, but I do think it's inevitable. I think at the end of the day, going back to the things that shocked me, when you actually work in a hospital, when I was a resident, all the stuff you think, oh, we're just here to take care of patients. Yeah, you are as a doctor, but that's not what the administration's thinking. They're thinking, how do we cut costs? They're thinking about bottom line. They're thinking about RVUs, they're called. And at the end of the day, it shows that it's all just comes down to the dollar, if it makes sense.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. And that topic is obviously a hot topic, meaning, replacement of jobs, right? I think it was last month in March where, when everybody was thinking about AI, a lot of the jobs that surfaced, especially in the medical field, were the radiologist. And all of a sudden in March comes the report comes out, and there were more hires of radiologists than ever, right? Because it just, helped with other efficiencies. So now the bottlenecks are everything is balancing out, right? Yeah. So we don't know really where this is going. And I think that at some point, it's not that necessarily it's going to, replace anything, but the way that we operate, right? Or how we fit humans within, the chain is definitely gonna change a little bit. So I think in a way, you have that saying that says, I'm not gonna be replaced. AI is not gonna replace me, but somebody that knows AI will. And I think that for now, that's kind of where the doomsday end. Like you just mentioned in your story, robotics is a strong one. Maybe we can see the benefits of manufacturing and all this stuff that can definitely assist, but we don't know what the dent in the economy it's going to cost. So, going back to go ahead. No, please.
No, I just think you hit it nail on the head. I think that was Jensen Huang said, it was NVIDIA's earnings where he said the radiologist thing, and you're completely right. I mean, I think it's going to augment, it's going to help. I think the doomsdayers are wrong. What I mean is if you resist it, you're not going to get the skills that are needed to then be part of the change and
of the move.
Influence.
Yeah,
exactly. And I think economically, as you just said, we're going to be fine. I mean, if losing jobs to robots and stuff was a bad thing necessarily, then we'd still be, we wouldn't be using tractors and stuff to move soil. We'd still be taking shovels because that uses more labor, right?
Exactly.
So at the end of the day, I think making good healthcare, which America has the best healthcare. You can say that the access and there's problems with this and that, but the wealthiest people in the world come to the United States for healthcare all over the world. So we have the best healthcare system. So to make it access better, actually, AI is going to be the thing. It'll let someone like me, there's only a certain amount of me in the whole world because of my training, not because of anything else, but because of my training, it'll let me do surgery from anywhere, even at some points. So you're right.
So what do you say about AI tools, right? Tech people building AI tools, let's say for med spas, right? What are some of these technicians getting wrong, let's say? Or have you found, maybe there's a disconnect between the tech and the actual operation?
Yeah, so I think the tech right now, at least in the cosmetic space, is the AI mainly is focused on actually marketing, like increasing whatever, hashtags or things that are trending or generating marketing content. And I think that's because, again, it follows the dollars. So in cosmetics, because you don't have insurance, and that's what allows these hospitals to spend whatever trillions of dollars is because they've just inflated this, the healthcare hospital charges this much and the insurance, and then it just becomes this arms race. And that's why, I needed labs. Let me tell you this. I needed labs a couple years ago, right when I finished training. And I was in a bridge getting my health insurance myself. So I called the lab and I said, hey, I don't have insurance. How much is this? And they said, well, it's $2,000. And I said, no, I don't have insurance at all. Like, I don't have anything. I need to pay cash. And they're like, oh, let me tell you the cash price. And they just told me $2,000. And they put me on hold. They call back, and then they're like, $150. I was like, what, $150 what? $150. And I was like, really? And she's like, okay, let me see if I can get you a discount. I was like, when I said really, I didn't actually mean it was too much. I was shocked that it was so little. Yeah. And she comes back, she's like, okay, we can do it for $75. And I was like, wait, so you're making money on this $75. Yeah. So you're charging the insurance $2,000. And the insurance, yes, they're going to pay you half of that. So they're going to pay you $1,000, but you just charge me $75.
Wow.
I guess my point is, in that world, AI is actually being used a lot more, whether it's the things we talked about. Some dermatology AI startup is now doing skin checks with a camera, robotics camera. UC San Diego is now using AI to respond to patient emails after hours. So I think actually in that space, there's a lot more use of it for patient-facing stuff. In this space, I think it's actually less than right now, because I think the cost of doing it, whether it's the data center, whether it's the actual building the data set for it to train on, it's a lot. There's less money, even though it's cosmetics and it's a cash only practice, it actually has less global money to chase, basically.
Yeah. So from the client's perspective, are you finding that when you bring in somebody for a consult, are they using AI to kind of get more educated, to being able to ask those questions more directly? Are they informing themselves using these tools to kind of catch up? Yeah.
So the first time I heard a patient use like, oh, chat told me this, or I found you guys via chat, was about 2 years ago. And this morning I had a consultation with a patient for a facelift, deep plane facelift. And she kept referencing chat as if it's a human, but she's like, oh, chat said this about this technique, or chat said this. And she's like, oh, I found you guys, I looked you up via this. So I think it's actually going to be the AI systems. And right now, at least as far as we know, it seems like people aren't necessarily paying to insert marketing into them. But that's obviously the next chip to fall, especially as they go public. And I'm a little worried about that, because really, you can pull the entire internet, your whole history. So if you want to deep dive on a doctor, you really could be like, search the entire internet, find any comment that is not positive about this doctor, socially, about his social life or non-socially, and I'm sure you can dig up some dirt. So I think it's going to be very interesting. I know that's not what you asked. You asked about learning about things, but I mean, in terms of researching your doctor, I think it just made it very easy. Whereas in the past, you'd have to Google and like search yourself. Now it's very easy to like look up your doctor and learn everything about them. And then on the patient education side, you're 100% right. Like patients come in, they're like, oh, chat said I'd be bruised for 4 days, or now Claude and Grok and all these other ones exist. So I'm hearing them all too, but basically, you're 100% right. It's becoming.
Well, I was going to say, that was my next question, right? Are people finding you through chat? It's funny because, we've been helping businesses, and that's probably our number one thing right now, is that people want to be able to position themselves, get recognized by chat. So that was actually my follow-up question. So
it was the first time was 2 years ago, and it used to be okay. Then after that, it was like 3 months, and then someone brought it up again. Now I'd say like once a month it comes up, whether they found it on AI or, so yeah.
What are I was gonna ask exactly that. The new cosmetic patients, actually, what are they typing? What does your team inside your practice spend most time on that you say, maybe we can just automate this, or you know what I mean? Save them from this. Is there that one thing that you're seeing that commonly it's just, bottlenecks that are common that maybe it hasn't been addressed?
I think the biggest would be like scheduling and basically addressing like basic patient queries. And it becomes hard because if you don't have the right AI set up or the right chatbot set up, then you're going to lose that service point, right? Like when you call the Four Seasons, you want to be taken care of. You don't want to be like, all right, I need to talk to agent, customer service, give me agent. So you don't want to be like yelling 000 on the phones. It is hard, but I think that is going to come, and it's going to probably be the next step. And just simple stuff like, hey, I'm interested in Botox. When are the availabilities and how much will it cost? I mean, right now a patient picks up the phone, calls or texts, and then someone on the other line is a human being responds. So that seems like pretty low level stuff. And then marketing, which again, it's already being used quite a bit for marketing, but I think a lot of the cosmetic space, there's a huge spend on marketing. And some of it's just throwing stuff at the wall. Does Google work better? Does Instagram work better? Whatever. And I think AI is really going to help streamline that plan. So you don't have to have a huge team necessarily as much to do that. Or if you have a team, they're more targeted, as we talked about.
Yeah, good point. And actually, that's my next question. How much in the cosmetic surgery space you think that it's relevant or it's important to build maybe this brand, online presence and brand? I mean, is it still led by reputation or, kind of referral, or you kind of have to have a solid presence in order to be relevant in the field?
I think it depends what kind of patients you're going for and where you live. If you are trying to be one of the best in the world or the country and you're commanding top dollar, a lot of it is still going to be referral and reputation. So I think that's huge. I think especially when you're starting and you just need to get patients through the door, then it just becomes getting your name out there so people can see you and hopefully you do good work, and then that builds that. So I think it goes hands in hands. But the reason I say that is because if a patient's paying, again, the Lamborghini or Ferrari or Bentley prices, they're going to be a little more discerning in terms of they're not just going to pop up their phone or Google something and say, I'm going to go now pay. It's just like you wouldn't walk in and buy a Ferrari. I mean, that's very rare. But if you need a car and you just need a car, that's all you want to do. So you might just walk in and hear an ad on the radio and go to Toyota versus Nissan or whatever you want to do. And I don't mean anything bad in terms of surgeons who are doing that. I just mean there's a different marketing paradigm there. So I think, and it just depends how fast you want to build too. So like one of my mentors back at Yale, who's one of the also big facial plastic surgeons, but he's really low key. He doesn't really have an online presence. His name is Dr. Neil Gordon. And he's done celebrities, he's done all this stuff, but he built that practice over years. So it's now just like a reputation, word of mouth practice, as opposed to being big on social media. So I think it depends how fast you want to build up and your desire of how much volume you want.
All right, let's talk, a little bit of foresight, but let's just say, you're a very busy doctor. And let's say you had 6 months to say, okay, I'm going to detach, just to take a helicopter view of what I'm doing. What would be the first thing you build, right? Like if you were able to step back, what would be something that you would create or build or, change, right, in how things are being operated overall? And I know it's probably a question you need some time to think about, but is there anything, that you say we should change this or this approach should be a little different? Yeah,
I mean, if you talk about it from the cosmetic side, I think it just goes back to what we talked about. I think we need to just start using our eyes and outcome based on just what we see instead of infighting about this and that. I think if you literally told me, hey, for 6 months you can't work and all you have to do is try to work on something, there's only two things that come to mind really, and one is system-wide. I think healthcare is a very inefficient place, and how would you drive efficiencies to not only save the U.S. healthcare system money, but also, which will help the taxpayer, will help the citizen, but also improve access for the majority of people. Again, I think we have the best healthcare in the world, and it hurts my heart to see that sometimes there are people in America who can't access it. So what are ways that we can do? And it's not a money thing. If you go and look at the per capita spending of healthcare per citizen of country, we're one of the top spenders. So we're spending just as much as some of these other countries that people use as like the role model country for healthcare, and we still don't get the same access. So that's one. And then there's part of me, and this is, since we're on the healthcare, we can talk about out of the box, where I think one space that could really use a refresh, and I grew up, I was born here, grew up in Texas, and very proud of America for giving me my family, because they were immigrants, a chance to be here. So part of me has always been fascinated by U.S. history, and I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. But I think the U.S., I feel like the U.S., and I worked when I was at the Yale, at the VA, the Veterans Administration. So I worked with vets and I worked in the military healthcare system. And part of me, if you gave me 6 months off, I would like to go into that space, revisit it, and see how we can revolutionize that space, because they're stuck in the Stone Age right now. And I feel like there are a lot of ways we can improve the capacity of our military healthcare system to give, going back to access, to give the people who are defending our country the right healthcare and the right systems and the right processes. So it's kind of a global way, but I think AI really, and again, the Da Vinci robot came out of the military. So I think it's actually the space where innovation can happen if you fight the bureaucracy. And I think a lot of that stuff could come out. I mean, again, the robotic surgery that now helps people, the civilians, that came from the military. So I would actually love to explore that space. I know it's not a really concrete answer, but I think that would be a really cool space. Yeah.
I think you landed home with that. Absolutely. 100%. No, for sure. I think you landed home. All right. We're almost done, Doctor, I promise. And thank you so much for joining.
Yeah.
I got a couple of more rapid fire questions.
Please.
What is the biggest piece of advice you would give somebody starting this journey right now, right? Let's say a med spa venture or getting into cosmetic surgery. What would be that advice that you offer?
Yeah. So my advice would actually be do it because you love it. And I don't mean to say it as like a trite thing or whatever, to sound thing. The answer is I think a lot of people get into this space because of a certain lifestyle or income or whatever. And I think that's the wrong reason. I think if you're good at whatever you do, including being someone who does waste management, it doesn't matter what you do. If you're good at it, the money will come, the accolades will come. So just do it because you love it. And once you're in it, think about what I said earlier. Use your eyes. Don't get swayed by the snake oil or someone telling you this is the way to do it just because they told you that's the way to do it. Medicine is a bit hierarchical, so if you think there's a better way to do it, it's the practice of medicine. Try it. Obviously don't hurt patients, but try it. Try to make the field better. I mean, if you're the future of the field, it won't get better unless you try. So I would say do it because you love it, and don't be afraid to take a risk to make it better.
Yeah, absolutely. Favorite AI tool that you're using, or favorite AI tools that you're using right now, or you prefer, or your go-tos?
My go-to right now is Grok. I like Grok because it trains on X or Twitter. It's like rapid fire in terms of like something up to date. As a civilian or as a normal person. As a doctor, open evidence has skyrocketed up there because it does only draw up on peer-reviewed studies. So I really do like open evidence. And then I am now dabbling back with Claude because it seems like Claude all of a sudden in the past month, going back to what we talked about, has been doing a good job. But if you looked at my app, my screen time usage, it's Grok and open evidence.
Yeah, awesome. A book of a person that shaped how you think more than any other. What's your top book, or maybe
So I love reading, actually. 4 years ago or 5 years ago, I turned off all streaming services. So I don't have any TV or anything. I do watch sports. I still am a huge sports fan, except for the Mavs, because I was a big Mavs fan, and then they traded Luka, and I'm sad now. But so I read a lot. So I think the book that I revisited the most is probably The Alchemist, and that's just like more for a motivational book, just to tell you if you work. I mean, the whole premise of that book is if you work really hard towards your destiny, the whole universe conspires to make it happen.
For you. Yeah,
exactly. So I think that's a great book in terms of just like my guiding light. In terms of what I've read recently, there's a recency bias too. I just finished back on the military. I read The Last Stand of the Tin Can Sailors and Band of Brothers. Band of Brothers went on to do a great show. I heard, I've never watched it, and those books really gave me a little more inspiration in terms of going back to the Great War, World War II. You had all of the country come together, and it really showed me Warren Buffett just had the annual conference, and he talked about the secret sauce of America, and nobody has been able to define the secret sauce of America, but there's something that makes everyone in the world want to come here, all the innovation come out of here. And when I read those books, it reminded me how blessed we are to live here, but also that secret sauce. Like, you had people who were at Yale, you had people at Harvard, you had people in the NFL, you had people leave their job to go fight for what they thought was right and to preserve the lifestyle that Americans had. And didn't matter left, right, Republican, Democrat, whatever you were, different colors, different races, they came together. And that's kind of what I'm trying to say is it was kind of eye-opening to see. And of course, many people sadly lost their lives, were wounded, but it was a time where the United States, America,
was
came
defined,
together
yeah.
and they really showed the world that anything is possible. So I think recently, people get sad with things on the news or this and that, and it reminds me, well, at times the whole world has been at war, so maybe we are at a good time, and that doesn't mean we can't get better. That doesn't mean we can't make people's lives better. That doesn't mean we can't help humanity. That's what I want to do. And I'm reading right now Re-Entry by Eric Berger about SpaceX, the second book about SpaceX, and how people never thought we'd have a private space industry or we'd never land rockets, and now we're doing that. So my point is, just because people tell you something doesn't work or can't happen, or because the world sucks or this and that, maybe remember the world doesn't suck. And if it does suck, well then do something about it. Come together, work together, and make the world better for your kids and for your kids' kids.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Doctor, thank you so much for your time. Very enjoyable, the conversation. Again, I was looking very much forward. You did not disappoint. For those trying to, learn more about your practice, learn a little bit more about what you do, what are the best ways to kind of get in touch and reach out to you?
Yeah, so all my social medias, I made it easy, are at Dr. Parsa Salehi. So just my name, Dr. Parsa Salehi. And they're each kind of different. So my Instagram is more my cosmetic surgery life, and if you want to learn more about that and you want to consult, you can book through there, call the office. And then in terms of my views on life, and it might be heavy on sports, but my X account, my Twitter account, you'll get to see a side of me that's more personal. But and then if you're interested in the papers, I publish constantly 6 peer-reviewed papers this year alone. We have 3 in publication right now. So by the end of the year, probably 12 or 13 papers will be published, working on a book for medical education. So if you're interested in any of that, that's all coming.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. And hopefully we'll get to touch base again in the near future. We'd love to maybe have a conversation again. Thank you, Doctor.
I'd love to come back. Have a great day. I love talking to you guys.
You too.
All right.
You too. Thank you.